Hello everybody and welcome to BroomWagon. You will not get there on the road bike. This is a special episode. It definitely is, because it's a bit of a hybrid. It's co-host and co-guest, because my guest of today, Pascal, is also the host of the Skids and Giggles podcast. We're going to talk about a lot of super cool things. First of all, though, remember that you can subscribe or just put a 5-star rating or whatever you want on Spotify or Apple Podcast. Now I think we are also on YouTube and on YouTube as well. In this way, we are gonna try to tell to the algorithm that we can be listened for many people and we can be suggested to many people because this podcast is cool. Anyways, you can also do the same manually. So just send out to the friends that you think can be interested on this episode the link of it, so that people can listen to that whenever you're doing whatever they're doing. And that's incredible. You can also follow me on CalamarosCC, Instagram, or us on the BroomWagon Podcast. So Instagram is the place to be. Plus, also, don't forget that it's cool if you go down in the description and you find the coffee link, you click on it and you drop a few coins. In this way, BroomWagon can be as independent as it should be. Pascal Pensa from the Skids and Giggles podcast is a person here in Zurich that is well involved in a lot of things. Yes, as I was saying, Skids and Giggles podcast. Plus is part of the board of Zurich Trail, and he has a podcast also with the Zurich Trail in Swiss German though. And apart from that, he just qualified for the gravel words that are happening actually now in October. A lot of stories, some backpacking as well, that are gonna happen into this episode. And I was saying co-host, co-guest, because this episode is more or less the same, also on the Skids and Giggles podcast. So there was a bit more of cross-matching of all these things around. So listen to the podcast, enjoy it, and I will talk to you later. So basically, you already pushed the red button, or?
I did press the red button.
That's perfect. So what are we doing? And by the way, so I'm Stefano. 3, 2, by the way, hi everybody. No, not 3, 2, 1 and nothing. I think we can go straight. I'm Stefano from the BroomWagon.
And I'm Pascal from the Skids and Giggles podcast.
So this is basically, how would you define it, Pascal? It's a co-host, co-guest podcast where everybody's both host. Are we dancing here?
Yeah, it's kind of an inception moment where podcasters talk about podcasting, but about other things. We've been sitting here for 2 hours already in this beautiful space on our terrace amongst the recycling and other things.
I mean, it's a lovely space. I have to say, people, that here is a lovely space. And actually, you can feel the vibes. It's super quiet, enjoyable space. So it's all right.
Absolutely.
A lot of creativity is running around here. You can see it. You can touch it.
You can almost feel it.
Exactly. So, can I start?
You start.
And I'm going to start by saying, we have been talking here, we said, for 2 hours. What was your favorite topic that we touched base?
Oh man, there was a lot. I think it's also the things we originally set out to talk about is really our shared love and passion for cycling and nerding out about bikes. I mean, even when I picked you up at home in the garage,
the messy garage, creative garage.
But you know, that's what it is. Checking out the bikes, storking out over your things and all the toys. About riding, what we enjoy in riding, the way we've come out through this sport, one way or the other. Your business is super interesting. Community is super interesting. You know, all these. Yeah. So it's been 2 really, really enjoyable hours, and now we actually remember to press record.
Absolutely. You said it before. We should have recorded since the beginning, but probably it would have been too long.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you really want to edit a raw file of 4 hours?
Maybe no, thank you.
No, maybe it's too much. It's not. No, but it's actually great. Maybe let's start from there. We actually stood there in my garage watching at a bike. Seems like it's also your bike. We were talking about a gravel bike. So, the question that I want to ask you, gravel bike, you're a mountain biker as well. You were talking about triathlon, bikes, how bikes arrive into your life.
I guess how much time do you have?
It's 12. I mean, we can record it and then cut it, or we can stay here until tonight.
Yeah. No, I think a really modern term to describe my passion and love for cycling is any two wheels. I have, over the last, pretty much 40 years, explored many different disciplines of the sport. Starting with the first bike, which is a BMX.
Wow.
And then, obviously I'm a child of the 80s, so mountain biking was not a thing until I was a teenager. I got my first mountain bike when I was 11, 12. Then, just riding bikes with your friends, having fun in the woods with my brother. Eventually I started racing, tried many different disciplines until my parents were like, you're not very good at this going fast down a hill thing, and why don't you try cross country? Did that. That was also quite a lot of fun. Actually raced until U23. But then when I went to university, I kind of stepped back from racing a little bit and focused on just riding, having fun. Did a lot of road, and as you mentioned, triathlon stepped into my life briefly because I grew up as a swimmer, and then obviously a friend of mine approached me, was like, hey, you can swim, you know how to ride a bike, why don't you try a triathlon? I was like, yeah, why not? And I guess that is the story of my life anyway. It's like why not? Sounds like a stupid idea. I'm totally part of this. And so did triathlon for a couple of years. Finished uni. I stayed on for uni to do a PhD, which is great for training because my advisor was like super relaxed. I was like, as long as the work is done, I don't really care. You can do whatever you want. So sweet. Then real life started with work. I moved away to London. There, more road cycling, just because if that's the community there, and mountain biking is a bit more distant. Then we moved back here, rediscovered the mountain bike, still rode a lot of road, was very hesitant, gravel hesitant,
Why
I should say. Because I was always, the backstory is that a bit over 10 years ago, I had myself a custom frame made, beautiful road bike, wonderful, modeled after my favorite bike of all time, which is a Cannondale Cat 10, for the record. It's a great bike. And I had basically a titanium version made of it.
Oh, no.
Just slightly adjusted geometry, but yeah, really, really nice bike. And I was always like, and then all of a sudden, the disc brakes came, bigger tires came, and this all-road concept, gravel concept that started picking up. And I was like, well, if I start entertaining that, then there's just no road bike anymore. Because that was always the allure of riding a bike, is this freedom of exploring and going places and seeing the world, right? And all road is just the epitome of that, right?
Absolutely.
So you can just, is it a gravel road? Is it a normal road? Is it a trail? Is it a whatever? And so there you go. But I've made significant changes in my life last year. Quit let's say a traditional career to focus on my family and trying to make sense of my life in the bikes. And
seems like a good plan.
And then somehow the gravel bike slipped into my life, and there we are.
It's perfect.
The circle closes.
Absolutely. But if you could, let's go philosophical. We can do it. If you could choose just one bike, you can make it. You can actually choose one off the shelf. You can build a frame that you have in mind. You can build it from scratch with a custom-made frame and then custom-made wheels and custom-made handlebar, whatever. Just one. I'm not asking you a mountain bike or a gravel. One. What would you be and how would it look like? It would certainly be very capable in a lot of ways. So that you could do exactly that. Any road, any two wheels, right? So it's it would be possible to ride long distance. It would be possible to ride up mountains. It would be possible to ride down mountains.
it would probably be possible one way or the other, probably some slight modifications to go to the odd race. So maybe some bikepacking too. I don't know if this is something I've only started to discover, but yeah, so that would kind of describe it. And yeah, I think it's a great time at this stage. I think recently we've seen a lot of interesting developments in the space between gravel, road, and mountain bikes, the three converging in the recent racing. That it seems to all come back together, and that's kind of, I think, where things are going.
That's nice. Yeah, absolutely.
How would your dream bike look like if you only could ride one?
I will start actually from one step before. So, if I can. Please. At the end is our podcast, so probably we can do. No, I mean, I told this story so many times, but actually my first real encounter with the bikes was after my master's degree. I was there really ready after defending my thesis, ready to go back to my hometown, go to the beach and enjoy my summer. When a friend of mine at that time already living in Switzerland, he's still living in Switzerland, came to me and said, let's go and do a bikepacking trip and let's go to Albania. Let's do 1,000 kilometers in 10 days. And then I said, we're talking about 2007. And then I said, I haven't ridden the bike. I mean, I was 26 there. I haven't ridden the bike since I was probably 6 or 5, and I don't own a bike. I know nothing about riding bikes at the moment. He said, no worries. The bike is gonna be on me. It's gonna be my present. On the other side, once you know how to ride a bike, you will keep on knowing it. Nothing is gonna change. So I said, okay, let's do it. Why not? As you were saying before.
Yeah, sounds like a stupid idea. I'm totally game for it.
Absolutely. Then I got this bike. It was a Peugeot Champagne of 1978. We took it from Rome. We went to Bari with the bike. From there, we took the ferry. We arrived to Durrës. And then we arrived until Igoumenitsa, 1,000 kilometers. A bit less than 10 days because I got sick. So I had to quick finish it in 7 days. So by that, actually, my first way that I actually match and fall in love with the bike was then. I never lost contact with my bike. But since then, everything started with bikepacking. But since then, everything moved forward. So I started keep on bikepacking. Then I went a bit more into the, let's say, road, but relaxed road racing and road riding. Then I went into full on illegal fixed gear riding and racing into the cities. Then I moved back a bit more into road cycling. I sold all my fixed gear. I didn't want to do it anymore. I said, I'm too old for that. I don't want to die because I need to brake on the traffic light. I still enjoy to do it from time to time, but I don't have the bike anymore. Then I went a bit more into road. And then at a certain point, I fell in love back to the bikepacking / gravel riding. And since then, I'm kind of balancing. I tried to jump into the mountain bike also a couple of times with not so much success. Things in life got a bit messy, so you cannot really dedicate so much time in order to improve your skills. And that's something that you need to do when you're doing mountain bike. Yeah. Long story short, at the moment, I'm thinking, so I still have, my functional bike that I used to bring kids to the Kita and everything, my cargo bike. Then I made actually this rigid mountain bike that I use basically for commuting, but it's just an excuse to go to the trails. And then I have my road bike, carbon road bike, and I have the bike that we were staring at, that is my open up, that is, I think, is the best compromise of a quiver killer. You can do road there, you can do gravel. It's kind of an all-road. Of course, mine is a bit more on the gravel adventure side because I have 650Bs, wheels with chunky tires. But I think I can go even leaner because I found myself actually that I don't enjoy anymore going straight off single tracks like crazy for the full ride. I think that actually now, getting back to your question, even if I rambled around for a bit, for me now at the moment, what I have in mind, the bike that I have in mind that I want to use, if it can be only one, it would be again, all-road bike, summarize it all. Maybe not so much space anymore for 650Bs. Too much rubber carried around is not needed because, as I was saying, I don't go anymore super fast on single tracks. But on the other side, maybe having something that is quite capable and I can use it for whatever. Maybe strapping a bag on it all the time is way easier if you have to bring your waterproof jacket and you have it there, a bunch of food or just whatever you need at the spot. So frame bag, maybe a saddlebag. I'm not a huge fan of it, to say, to the handlebar bag.
I'm not a huge fan of the saddlebag.
Really? Why?
Yeah.
Because it's wobbling around?
Yeah,
Or but
I can't deal with it.
But it looks so good, though.
Really?
Yeah, I think it looks super good. You see actually somebody with a saddlebag and you see, okay, these people know what they're doing. I usually don't, but I like it. So it would be
I like the German word for it. Do you know the German word for it? It's called, literal translation is the ass bomb.
Okay.
Arschbombe.
Okay. I think that actually, I don't know, saddle bone, I think is called in Australia or stuff like this. That's what I heard. It's kind of weird. But then this would be actually, and most probably now I would love to get rid of all the carbon fibers that I have actually in my life at the moment. So it would probably be a capable, custom-made steel frame that I can use for doing everything. Because I feel also uncomfortable as soon as I have to. I mean, the thing that I always say is that two things I say usually. When I find a scratch on my bike, I say, okay, if I wanted something just to watch, I would have bought a TV screen. That's the first thing that I say. And the second thing, as soon as I hit something or whatever, and everybody say, wow, what the hell? What happened to your bike? Is insured. But on the other side, I would love to be a bit of free of mind in order to commute with it and go around, because commuting with a carbon bike is not really the best.
No. Titanium is great for that, especially if you have it unpainted. Then you can just get a Scotch-Brite and...
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I would say that actually that's another thing that I say really often. I'm going to get a titanium bike as soon as I would be old enough. I mean, I'm quite old. I'm 43. I don't call myself young anymore. But as soon as I'm going to be old enough and I'm ready to bikepack to Iceland. I have this kind of idea that in order to go and bikepack in Iceland, you need to have a titanium bike. What do you think?
I'm very Iceland curious. I've seen some really, really cool things. Our common friend Andrea, he's just been. I've seen his photos. It looks just absolutely stunning place.
Oh yeah, of course.
And so I mean, there's surely with bikes, there's been some really cool things that have been done on Iceland. I've seen some couple of YouTube productions, be it racing or documentations or whatever. So I think there's really, really cool stuff to do there, and just as a place to explore, it offers a lot in terms of natural beauty and how compact everything is on that island, and how remote it is from the continent. In that sense, it's kind of that dichotomy of like, okay, it's kind of similar, they're kind of European, but they're kind of still far away, and it's very, very interesting in terms of the natural beauty that's kind of that's alluring. But there's many cool places like that, right? So Madeira in that sense is also very similar.
Yeah, but because you're a mountain biker, that's why you're talking about Madeira.
Well, I mean, leave out the mountain biking, right? Madeira is it's a crazy island just because of the collection of climate versus geography, topography, the mountains. It's just very, very crazy, and then you add the flora and fauna of the island. There's like a lot of flowers, jungle, rainforest. You have these sugar plantations. You have the fruit plantations. And then you have like this volcanic side of the island, which has this black sand and stone, and it's all like super weird. And then on top of that, you add the mountain biking, and it's just absolutely insane.
Have you ever done the Trans Madeira?
Yes, I've started it once and I finished it another time.
Oh, so twice. You've been there twice.
Yeah, I've been to Madeira a couple of times. They have been sometimes painful times, but it's just I fell off a couple of times and some weird injuries. But last year I completed the Trans Madeira. A really cool adventure, really, really cool. It's just a vibe. I mean, I've done a lot of stage races and like multi-day stuff, and some of these events, they can feel like a traveling circus and being like super big deals and stuff. So, for example, I've done the BC bike race 7 years ago, and I mean that's a traveling circus of 600 people that are relocating from camp to camp every day, and it's like a really big production. And Trans Madeira is, 140 people. during the week you have met everyone. You've spent numerous hours joking and laughing and having a good time. You met all the chefs, you met all the guys that are carrying your stuff around, and the mechanics and all that. So it's really, really a good time.
He's a really good friend of mine, actually, part of the organization, Antonio. He's a photographer.
Yeah.
And I met him 2019 when I was doing the official podcast of the Silk Road Mountain Race.
Oh, wow.
By the way, shout out to the Silk Road Mountain Race. It's starting in 3 days, I think. Another super good friend of mine, Alan, now is running the podcast to everybody. I mean, I think you need to tune in. It's going to be an amazing adventure. I love Kyrgyzstan. Anyways, Antonio, and he was the one actually trying to, because, I mean, media team into a bikepacking event in Kyrgyzstan means that you are spending together almost 3 weeks. 4 people. There was the driver, Antonio. No, Antonio is actually the photographer, Anton. Then there was Divan, the car manager, a bit more in the organization. It was me and Antonio. So we were the 4 of us. So we are spending actually the full day in the car together. You are stopping to taking photos. It was the photographer. I need to take the interviews. And then we were also sleeping in the same tent. So we're basically talking about everything. But the biggest topic there was, Stefano, what are you doing with cycling? I mean, I do gravel cycling most of the time. And actually, BroomWagon Podcast is the podcast that is actually spinning off everything now. Says, and the headline there is that you will not get there on a road bike. So for me, everything is gravel. Gravel is the best bike. And he said, I don't really understand gravel bikes. I do enduro. I am actually part of the organization of the Trans-Madeira. And, okay, so I should come there with my gravel bike and say, there's not riding gravel there in Madeira. No. You should take actually some suspensions.
Please don't. That's really not a good idea. I mean, I did last year when I did it on a hardtail. And that was a decidedly stupid idea, but I made it work. Exactly, because why not? But yeah, no, it's all doable, right? So, you're having fun, and that's what matters.
Yeah. No, but yeah. Madeira is something. It's absolutely in my bucket list. It's yeah.
Oh, you should. I mean, even without a bike, right? So don't take a road bike because there's only 2 directions on Madeira. It's either up or down, and the up is very steep,
and the down as well.
Down as well. And if you can't brake anymore, you're somewhere in the ocean.
Okay.
So it's not great.
And it's refreshing though.
Yeah, for sure. Atlantic.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you one thing actually, if we can, because we were talking about Trans-Madeira. Seems like it's really community driven as I can experience Trans-Madeira, right? And that's actually something that discussing with Antonio, talking about him as well. Mad Production, by the way, on Instagram, super good photographer. I was talking with him and I was saying all the time, you know what? It's really fascinating me about these enduro events, enduro in general, mountain bike in general. Seems like, and that's actually what it is in my eyes, the mountain bike community, the enduro community is way closer. It's really keen all the time to help each other. It's racy, but just probably on 10%, maybe competitive on 10%. The rest of the time is spending good time together, drinking good beers together, even before, right, from time to time. But the cool thing that actually always fascinated me about enduro cycling is on the way down, you race. On the way up, if somebody has a problem, you stop there. If you have to push your bike, you push the bike. Is it like this? Or is it just something that I have in my mind, something like, oh no, I have pink smoke in my eyes and seems like everything is beautiful?
Well, no, I mean, I think what the allure is of enduro is really because that's generally the way most people ride a mountain bike. Right, so when you ride with your friends, then you chat on the way up, you tell jokes, egg each other on because one is out of shape or whatever, or if there's a problem, then obviously you help each other out. And then on the way down, you have the trails and you try to have a good time. Either someone likes to ride fast, someone likes to jump, someone likes to do skids, whatever it is, right? So, and then you congregate at the bottom and you ride back up and do the same thing again, right? And an enduro race is, unless you go to the World Cup level, it's generally exactly that format, right? So there's a collection of trails called stages that you need to do in a certain order. And between the stages, you're kind of free to take your time. If you get to the World Cup level, then there's fixed times that you need to be there. There's fixed start times, but apart from that, like normal grassroots races, it's relatively relaxed. And then it's all about the good times. And then of course, because it's mountain biking, most of the time something goes wrong. Flat tires, ripped off derailleurs, bent stuff, whatever it is, right? And then it's a big community event to bring it back to life.
Yeah.
and then you go on and try to finish the race, right? Because that in the mountain bike culture, right, this self-reliance is a very big component, and has generally been also in racing. I think only in the last couple of years, like, with the professionalization of cross country through the Olympics and obviously downhill is, if something breaks, the race is done anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But cross country, now that you have like tech zones, that has been removed a little bit. But if you go to marathons and enduro, there the self-reliance is still a very, very important element. And of course, because enduro, you kind of have this, you ride together, all day more or less, and you just have this short race of individual stages. The community of bringing it together and helping each other out to actually finish the race is a much more of a center stage, which is something really, really cool.
Yeah. And do you find, talking about the transition there, so we're going to go a bit more in something that I know a bit more, that is not mountain biking, unfortunately, for now. You are also taking the path now at the moment of going into competitive gravel racing.
Oh, yeah.
How do you see that? How do you see the difference? How was the community in your eyes? I'm going to tell you about my idea of gravel community at the moment and different things, but tell me about yours.
It's fun. It's funny, right? I was like, again, it's one of those, sounds like a stupid idea. When are we going? But it's I like to understand the different disciplines and kind of what they're all about in terms of the competition and racing and all that kind of stuff. And then earlier in the year, I was like, oh, cool, World Series, that sounds interesting. And cool, there's a couple of races that are close by. And then as a loose goal, I set myself to do well and qualify for the Worlds. But I was, fully honest to myself that I haven't raced on the road in over 10 years. My pack skills are probably not as good and sharp as they used to be. And then also I had no idea what the actual format is in terms of the World Series. I follow the US scene loosely. You see all like the big American gravel races, like these big slogs, like 10-hour races, like Unbound or steamboat gravel and the Belgian waffle rides and all these kind of stuff. And you see those races and you're like, oh wow, those are like, those are big races, right? It's like big slogs and like marathon plus almost. And then I showed up in my first World Series race, and that was basically like, glorified cross-country marathon loop or a long cyclocross race. But I think that's the cool thing as this discipline tries to find itself, right, in terms of the competition format. You can probably go to these 25 World Series stops, and all those races are very, very different.
Yes, of course.
So even the two races I did, right, I did Singen in Germany, which was raced on the same track as the Marathon World Championship in 2017, which obviously tells you something about the development of bikes.
Absolutely.
in that time.
Also the skills of people.
That too. And then the week after, I did the one in Villars, in the Valais region, and that was more of like an alpine cross-country loop with a lot of road thrown in, just obviously because the weather was a bit of an issue, so they had to take some of the off-road stuff out. But yeah, that was more 50% road, the rest was off-road, but then very high alpine crossings to Le Diableret and back and all that.
Super awesome area, by the way.
Very nice area to ride. On all bikes. Road bikes, gravel bikes, mountain bikes, everything there is really, really fun.
I've ridden it, not in a competition, but I've den it a couple of times. And now the Diableret area there, a couple of super nice passes that nobody's there. It's amazing.
So yeah, so that was I guess one of the learnings is that the racing in Europe is very different than what you see on your social feeds in the US. But that doesn't mean it's bad. I certainly had a lot of fun. It's very different to a lot of things that I've done the last couple of years. But yeah, it's good fun. In terms of community, right? It's I was joking about it as I was preparing, and you start thinking about your kid and like, oh, okay, you see the guys like you see what's happening on the road. You see what's happening certainly in US where it's a bit more established. See like the aero kit and all the optimization of tires and wheels and this and that, and you feel like an idiot preparing like that. And then you show up at the start line of a World Series event, and it's like everyone else is doing it too.
Absolutely,
it's just part of the game now. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's cool. I enjoy that stuff, right? To tinker.
What's the result then?
The result?
Yeah, you were talking that you tried to qualify, and then
I did. So that's the big part of the story. So the first one. The level was incredibly high, right? So it was like, even I looked at the results, and like without any research in top 10, I recognized the names that I know from my past racing, former World Tour professionals, former national champions in marathon, all that sort of stuff. It's like, okay, it's just that's the level here, I guess. So I was quite outside of the qualification slots. For the record, the first 25% per age group qualify for Worlds. So it was like 5-6 spots back. And then Villar, just literally slipped into the last slot and qualified for Worlds.
That's nice.
It's obviously beautiful. You can, in hindsight, you can create these fantastic storylines about how the race went, and you could feel that something is on the line and I have to sprint and try to catch up with these guys and all that. The reality is, in the moment, I had no idea that I was sprinting for the last slot or not.
Okay.
That was just pure racer instinct. And, you smell the finish line and of course you're going to sprint. And as it turned out, it was the sprint for literally the last slot.
Wow.
And the difference between qualifying for Worlds and not is 5 seconds. Oof. And I have there's a photo from like the official photo service where you can see me crossing the line, and the guy that just didn't qualify is like 20 meters behind me or whatever.
Oh gosh,
it's
okay,
quite,
exciting.
Yeah. So we're gonna make a bit of a family trip to Belgium this year to go check out the Worlds and see what that is all about.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's gonna be a great experience just
sure.
to be around that event and travel and see this whole process of like, okay, I set myself a goal, I trained for it, I tried, I failed, I tried again, it kind of worked out, and now we're going to Worlds. I think that is a cool storyline for the kids to see.
Absolutely. And you're bringing them as well, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
we're going to Belgium.
That's nice. When is it gonna be, by the way?
First weekend in October.
Okay, yeah, it's gonna be wet.
Maybe. I never know. I mean, I've done some racing in Belgium. It's always been windy and mostly been wet. So I agree. My preparation is probably going to be to get a tight-fitting rain jacket.
Yeah. Please do it. No, but yeah, it's nice actually. How this evolution of the gravel came to life. Seems like at the beginning, all the gravel was just something. The old road gravel was just something for long distance ultra endurance self-supported thing. Now seems like I don't want to be super harsh. I'm gonna be super harsh anyways. Seems like this was actually a way to hook in a bunch of roadies into another way where they can actually race, because before it was Gran Fondo and stuff. Now you can really qualify to the World Cup, for the World Championship if you want.
I mean, the reality is it's a business, right? So I'm not going to delve into my qualms with the UCI and Swiss cycling about
because you have
the implications of these things. But in terms of gravel, I think it's there's always the right time for a discipline or a right time for the sport. And I think with the increase in traffic in city closer to the city, and more people on the road, whichever vehicle. I think there was a need to have something that is kind of similar to riding on the road, because in the pandemic a lot of people were finding the bicycle as a way of recreation. Totally fine. I have absolutely no problems with that. They just started realizing, like even in Switzerland, or in Europe generally, where we have great infrastructure for cycling, even with segregated bike lanes, with all these kind of things that we have that make cycling safer compared to other places, right? I've ridden a lot in Canada. My wife's Canadian. I've ridden a lot in the US, where that is just not the case, right? So, and you're a moving target on the road or in the UK, right? I mean, in the UK, outside of London is probably some of the most aggressive anti-cycling behavior I've ever seen anywhere.
Oof, okay.
And here on the continent you generally don't have it, but still there is this push to be away from traffic, and obviously all that network of farm roads and forestry roads and away from traffic cycle lanes is just a happy coincidence for the moment of gravel, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, It's not that we didn't do that before, right? We joked before about the cross-country marathon from 2017, right? Yeah. Now it's a gravel race. Uh-huh. If I think back to my junior days and U23 days, mountain bike racing, that was forestry roads and gravel roads, and that's what you ride on a gravel bike today, right? So, it's a bit more accessible. It feels, I think it's more about the feeling of it being more accessible than a mountain bike, right? Because with mountain bike, people feel like, I have these big stubby tires, and I don't need that for gravel. And if I have this mountain bike, then I'm going to ride big trails, and I see Rampage, and that is dangerous. So it's kind of weird. Thinking that happens there, I don't know.
Yeah, and we were talking about that also before. Is at the end of the day, we're just riding bikes, right?
Oh, yeah.
So just sit on the bike, do whatever. If you feel like going down with your gravel bike,
if you're having fun, you're doing it right.
Exactly, absolutely. No, but that's really interesting, and I think that actually this gravel thing unlocked a lot of potential, of fun. And of course, it depends on the person, depends on the community you're living in, depends on people that you're riding with. If you are actually surrounded by super competitive, I mean, I have to say that actually I'm kind of itchy when I'm talking about competitiveness. I'm not competitive at all. So it's not that actually I'm not programmed to do that. It's basically probably the software in my brain says that, Stefano, whenever there is a competition, I switch my brain off. So that's the thing. But on the other side, I can see that actually people need competition, whatever, because we actually fuel with it from our society on one side, and on the other side, people like actually to challenge themselves. It's not competition against people. I think that this is a bit more driven for really the society, but competition with yourself is good because you're pushing yourself out of the boundaries, and that's really good. So basically, as soon as you do that, I can understand that actually the competition is also a good fuel in order for you to go in the right direction. But on the other side, I have also a lot of friends that just like to be out just for 15 kilometers, arriving one place, stop there, having a coffee, taking your mocha, taking your pot, using that saddle bag that actually is always super helpful. Take off your mocha and your coffee and do your coffee outside. And I'm a bit more in this kind of thing. That's why I was saying I like to challenge myself, but the most important thing is I like to have fun. And most of the time, actually, I don't have fun if I need actually to push my brakes because actually I'm scared of going down in the ocean in my Daira. I prefer actually to go around to check maybe if I can see some wildlife. That's the spirit of gravel from my side. That's why at the moment I'm riding gravel bikes on the road. That's not the spirit
of gravel. That's the spirit of bicycle. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same with with music, right? So it's not there's not genre cool genres or good genres. There's just good music and not great music, and the genre doesn't really matter.
Yeah, Taylor Swift. I'm getting into it. It's just lovely. It's amazing music. I really like Taylor Swift. I was having this conversation with my wife a couple of weeks ago. After the big concert here in Zurich.
Yeah. One thing actually I'm very curious about, and you alluded to it earlier, you also have you've obviously you're currently living the expat life, but you've also lived the big city expat life in Berlin.
Yeah.
And also explored a little bit the fixie scene. And I'm really curious about that experience. How well, on the one hand, it's kind of like briefly, how was it? But also, like, you know, what have you taken away from it to, you know, for what you do today?
Yeah, first of all, I have to say that most probably the fixed gear scene in Berlin is probably the godfather of my podcast, I have to say, because my first podcast that actually is a spin out, I would say, of the BroomWagon podcast, the podcast at that time was called The Spin Cake. That was actually, the tagline there was from short spins and cakes to the fixed 42 World Championship. So basically I started the podcast because I want to document the fact that I was going to compete into the unofficial World Championship of fixed gear that happens in Berlin every July, I think. Is fixed 42 is 42 kilometers, the same distance of a marathon in closed roads, no brakes. You ride something like 25 kilometers out of the 42 on an highway. And so I had actually to learn all these things. And also there, long story short, but then because I was already into fixed gear because of many things, and this was actually super nice. Actually, there a little story that is a cool story, and actually this actually links with a lot of part of my life. I ended up into the BroomWagon because I was into the city. I couldn't actually stay because of I was tired after the Autobahn and everything like that. Then I saw a couple of friends of mine crashing super bad, so I was also affected mentally about that. And long story short, they told me, do you want to jump off and go into the BroomWagon? Otherwise, we can cut your number. You can actually cruise until the finish line. I said, what? And then they said, look, man, but I have to say, you do whatever you want, but in the BroomWagon, there are beers. And then I said, oh, nice. Yeah, because you know what? At the end of the race, you can only find Erdinger beer that are alcohol-free beer. In the BroomWagon, we have proper beers. I said, okay, where's the BroomWagon? I'm jumping in. And from there, I got I got a beer. I got super good stories inside. And then from the Spin Cake arrived the BroomWagon. That's the story. So fixed gear scene in Berlin was incredibly good. Yeah. I got in touch with the messenger scene. I got to know a lot of friends of mine there. They were bike messengers. We were doing the Alley-Cats all together. We were doing twice in summer, even more, but usually also during the winter, twice a week, we were doing these kind of rides from Späti to Späti. So from the little kiosks that sell cheap beer. The fresher beer that you can have. We're doing something like first a longer loop inside of the city, or small, literally a bit more outside, and then we were stopping from Späti to Späti in order before to get back home. Of course, beer was always involved, and that's what we were doing. And then we were starting doing also some training for the Alley-Cat. It was as well as Späti to Späti. So we had a map, and you had to reach actually different Späti in your, how would you call it? The brevet card is called. And so you need to go from here to there, and you are actually choosing your own way. And then we were arriving all together at the last Späti and share the experience. And this was another thing that we were doing. And then this ended up with, then in November, there is the Halloween Alley-Cat. That is the biggest of the city. People from all over the world are coming there. And that was also super good. So I love being with these people. I also usually say that I speak taxi driver German, but more the taxi driver because it's the only German that I can speak with taxi driver after I'm drunk, because I actually trained it, because actually my German got what's the level that it is right now, because I was talking with all the community of Bike Messenger, Alley-Cat, the Messenger fam, and actually I trained on that. And this huge sense of community, going outside just with your fixed gear bike, just for the sake of having a beer and stay together and meeting all the time new people. And I helped out also organizing the European the European Messenger Championship in Stettin as well, because most of the people from Stettin, they were living in Berlin, and then organized it there. And it was really the first encounter with being free, being on the bike, having fun, don't putting yourself goals. For sure, there was the competition of the Alley-Cat, but we were organizing as well an Alley-Cat where you didn't, I mean, at that time you didn't have to be the fastest one on the bike, but you have to do also stupid thing during the checkpoints, like, I don't know, something like doing water bombs and trying to get somebody on the road. So these kind of pranks, completely punk kind of things, and I loved it.
Oh yeah, I mean,
this was actually the idea: having fun on the bike, being as punk as you can. Basically, having not so many rules, of course, respect first of all, and I mean, I actually also my own kind of rule system, never actually trying to do something super crazy while there were kids looking around, whatever, because you need to educate also people that it's not that actually, okay, these people are just doing crazy things on the bike, I want to do the same for a kid that is 6-7 years old, and all this kind of thing. But on the other side, having fun as much as possible, and this was the thing. So I have to say that probably my biggest heritage and my biggest background was, and what I am at the moment is big part on that. At a certain point, I had to say that I saw the evolution coming as well in Berlin. Most of the people that I was riding fixed gear at the time, of course, we're still in contact, but everybody actually moved a bit more in the gravel scene, trying to replicate this thing, this community feeling, this fun, without having, I mean, having the brevet card is always good, but finding your own path, discovering all the time new path and new roads without having a plan. That's what you usually do on the road. You have your plan. You say, I want to do this ride 100 kilometers up this and this pass. You follow your Garmin. Of course, you're looking around, but you're following a path. We were actually transferring the thing. Let's go to this other Späti, or to this other Späti, to let's go to this lake. Let's go to this climb. Let's go to this gravel road that I've never been. And we saw actually this developing. And now most of the people that I know are actually into this scene. And I remember actually once we were doing this it was a fixed gear ride in the middle of the city at 5 o'clock in the morning, and this guy actually just showed up there with a fixed gear with, I think it was 27.5 for sure, 650 Bs, but they were something like 2.2 inches tires, and he made actually this ride with that. And then from there, this kind of and then we started doing also monster cross event on fixed gears during the winter and everything. There I saw this thing developing, and now it's absolutely, the community part is absolutely part of me.
Yeah, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned the big keyword, and I think in the interest of time, I think we are starting to wrap this up.
Also because I think we can talk here for another 2-3 hours. We have a lot of stories to tell.
Exactly, so. But I guess to bring it back to what you do today, you mentioned already on the BroomWagon there was the beer.
Yes.
And the beer is still here today. Nice ring to it. Tell me more about Zier.
Yeah. Because
that's what your beer is called. And what was the inspiration to start Zier?
Yeah. Also there, I mean, I think that actually I will put it from another side. And I put it as a cultural thing, because that's something that I'm hearing all the time. Basically, Zier is an alcohol-free beer. And in my mindset, I always said, alcohol-free beer? Does it even make sense? At the end of the Fixed 42 World Championship, there are going to be alcohol-free beer. No, I want to jump on the BroomWagon to have a regular beer. Alcohol-free beer is better for me to take a Coke. All these kind of things were actually wobbling into my mind most of the time. Don't get me wrong, I still love a good IPA, maybe coming from Canada. My favorite brewery happens to be still in Berlin, and is First Viecek. They are doing amazing alcoholic beers, in my opinion, one of the most progressive breweries in the world. But the point is that at a certain point of my life, I was drinking. I mean, I'm still drinking quite a lot of beer. I remember that actually a couple of years ago, there was also this article on Cycling Mag on the relationship between beers and bicycle, most of the time this messenger scene and also this gravel scene being all related. And I found myself actually that for me, big part of my ride was having a couple of beers after the ride, plus because of my network and also of my contacts into the brewing world, I was actually having my fridge every time full of super tasty craft beer. And I felt like, okay, maybe drinking a couple of beers every night is not the best for me. I have 2 kids. That's something that I have to say. So sleep deprivation is kind of a reality. I mean, Camilo is 2.5, Tiziano is 6 months, so you don't sleep so much. Put on top of it a couple of beers. The day after, you're not a human being anymore. Not counting the fact that also you need to go to the toilet more often when you drink alcoholic beer because it is dehydrating you. So put all together that, I said, okay, do I really want to have that? Do I really want to be like this? But on the other side, do I really want to go at my fridge, open the door of my fridge, and check inside and only drink sparkling water at night? Because Coke is not an option for me. I mean, it's too much caffeine, then again, sleep deprivation kicks in, too much sugar is not really the thing. And then I was thinking, maybe not. What is missing? Looking around, we found out, actually, my co-founder, Stefano and I, we found out that there was basically a gap there in the market of craft and tasty alcohol-free beer. And this was actually a gap that we could fill. Mm-hmm. And so we had a couple of brainstorming sessions, let's put it in this way, that they ended up just by being there, talking a lot and understanding I'm big into cycling, he's big into trail running. And we're thinking about how to match also this thing there, because you want to have a tasty drink at the end of these kind of events. And also on the other thing, another thing that I always say, the BroomWagon podcast is based on 3 pillars. This why not thing is the last one that we're saying all the time. But the first one are inclusivity. And I believe that actually inclusion is not really a great thing at the moment, especially when I was younger. Everybody was going out, and even people that don't like to drink, if you don't have enough personality, you're finding yourself with the beers in your hands and you don't want to. And maybe an alcohol-free beer, a tasty alcohol-free beer that can be shared, it's something that actually could really close a bit the gap of this drink in your hands. And that's another thing. So I believe that actually alcohol-free beer can be a good inclusion tool, let's put it in this way. And on the other side also is sustainability, and by having your drink packaged in the right way and also putting a bit of this kind of culture and spirit of recycling and everything, and actually a can is really a recycled thing, would actually help out as well into this kind of open market. Of course, everything was on the product itself, on the liquid alcoholic beer. That the thing that we say all the time is one of my taglines is zero and beer, they're not enemies, they're not competitors. They often go out and drink together and party together because that's what it is. We don't want to be something that relates to a normal beer. What's a normal beer? Beer is beer, right? It's like, that's a long conversation that we can have. What's a normal bike? Is it an e-bike? Is an e-bike go into the same direction? That's the thing. For me, it's everything is beer. Just the point is that they're all together. They're not competing for the same space. It's something that goes well together in order to close the gaps. And that's exactly what we wanted to build. And we went actually to a producer that we know that is probably the best, for sure the best, in my opinion, craft beer contract brewer. And we found it in Belgium, of course. Where would you find it? And we developed actually together with them our recipe. We had something in mind, and we transferred it to them. They are super good. They help us out on doing that. And now that's what we wanted to do. We want to actually to be in the space of being inclusive, on being sustainable, using the why not. Do you want to have an alcohol-free beer? Yes, why not? Let's drink it together. Yeah. Do you want to have an alcohol-free beer in the middle of 2 regular IPAs? Why not? It's okay. It's hydrating. It's good. And we want to be in the outdoor. I want Zier to be a player in the outdoor space. And because I'm into cycling, as I was saying, I try to do it as support of the cycling community as much as possible. Mm-hmm. My heritage at the moment, and actually my big attachment, is in this kind of brevet, long distance, all road kind of events. Yeah. That's why, for example, I saw actually before you were offering me a filter coffee from Vertical. Yeah. Vertical Coffee, they're doing a super amazing event. The main event that they're doing is called the Vertical Brevet. And they do also discovery rides.
Yeah, that's where I had your beer for the first time.
You see? And they have super cool events, and they're super community-driven events.
Just around the corner here.
For you, it's not super far away, right?
Yeah, it's 3 kilometers over the hill.
Oh, that's awesome. So you go there with a bike usually. Yeah. And their concept is quite good. It's really a community-based thing. And we found ourselves actually super good there because they're doing basically loops that start and end up all the time at their roastery. And there you can have your drink. They are preparing super amazing food. You can meet new people, and you can have Zier as well there. And we like actually to support their community there. Same thing for bigger ultra endurance event. I mean, super well organized ultra endurance event like Dead Ends and Cakes, Dead Ends and Dolce for this year, Zuri Escape.
Yeah.
Same thing. Domi does an amazing job in order to build up the community, and we are there. And that's what we want to be. But we are trying to discover also, because inclusivity and inclusion is a fact, we are trying to discover also other paths. And for example, maintaining the outdoor with trails and trail runnings and any kind of bikes that we do, it's something that we are looking for and we're looking into. And as well, we are going to partner up quite soon for a super new event, is the BL Crit. I'm super into, because I was also super big into cyclocross riding. I really love it. And this is actually another thing that I really love. And I believe that actually Crit racing is racing industry on the road, the city road, in loops, and their community can really be there and share with you and drink beers or alcohol-free beers there. And that's what we are doing. I think we are quite recognizable as a taste, I hope, but also the design. And I put actually there all my, again, even younger heritage of street art and spray painting. And I think you can notice. Plus with some holographic kind of things that are actually showing you that we are in a kind of a cyberpunk kind of era, but of course with some hip-hop and street culture inside.
No, but what I really like what you said about, working with the best partners, and because we talked about this before, the element of quality, right? It's kind of like the same principle like Elon Musk or Anton Voss with Stark Future or the guys from Athletic Brewing or whatever, right? They didn't set out to make another alternative to whatever was existing. They set out to make a great product, and they develop a great product, and not necessarily just to be the same like everyone else, right? So if you think of Tesla, they've innovated in a lot of ways that are now being replicated in other areas. If you think about so Stark Future, the electric motocross bike, they said like, well, we're not developing an electronic motocross bike, we're developing a fantastic motocross bike, and it happens to be electronic. And, so it's kind of that same principle, right? So it's leading with the quality, and it's just a nice side effect that it's also alcohol-free. Which,
that's exactly
again, with I like your inclusion argument, because that's obviously something I've experienced over the last couple of years since I've decided for the sober life. But it is quite, as you say, right? So it's kind of like, if you're not part of the group that is, getting hammered, then it's kind of a weird bystanding existence. And you're just, not having exactly the same experience. And it's being made more complicated, and it doesn't need to be, right? Just because you've decided that you want to stay sober because you're the designated driver, or because that's what you've made as a life choice, then doesn't mean you can't be part of it. So.
I mean, I remember actually a little story, and also this one, because at the end there, even if, everywhere serious books, everywhere, right? They tell you this story, at a certain point you have the haha moment. And maybe it could have been also the one that I told you. I was actually having my fridge full of beers all the time. I opened once and I said, okay, I want something different from an alcoholic beer, a beer, and something different from sparkling water. This seems like the haha moment. But it was actually, everything was a build-up. And talking about inclusivity, I was actually making a couple of races, but actually this one in particular, it was a cross race in Berlin, right? And there, I was all the time, if I was not the last one, I was almost the last one. It was always like this. But a really good friend of mine, his straight age, won it. And they basically almost forced him to get a beer on the podium, because that's the culture, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You need to cheer at the end, and if you drink the full beer, then you are the one.
Yeah,
you finish the beer in one sip, you are the one. You deserve to win. And he was actually saying, no, I'm straight edge. I've never drunk in my life. I'm not going to start now.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the thing. That's why we try to partner up and having Zier with our flashy look in the podiums of events, where before there was the champagne, there was this, and at many events, actually, you need to actually empty your glass of beer in one sip in order to be really the winner.
Yeah.
You don't have to, you can do whatever. And that's really the inclusion point. And as you were saying, the quality is absolutely the thing. And I like your definition. Zier is a super good quality beer that happened being an alcohol-free beer.
Yeah.
But this doesn't define it.
Yeah, that's cool. We've had a little impromptu tasting session last night with.
How do you like it? Tell me more about that. If I can actually be auto-referential, how do you like the beer? What do you think?
I'm a big fan.
Okay.
I'm a big fan. I mean, I have ideas how you can develop the product in terms of different flavors, but the two IPAs that you do have are very good, very tasty, very. Again, it's a craft beer. It's not like something that you drink necessarily as a refreshment or as a as a pure hydration, right? So in that sense, it's almost lost if you don't have it, let's say, with a nice meal, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of in that quality of beer, which I really appreciate, right? Because that's kind of what's missing, right? If you take one of the generic brands, alcohol-free beers, that is. The joke before was I'm not gonna do the same rendition, the Sex on the Beach joke. It's very close to water.
Yes.
But so it's more like a refreshing drink when it's really hot out and you just want something else than water.
Yeah.
Whereas Zier is a very textured, multi-layered experience that goes very well with a meal, but you can obviously also enjoy it, reading a book or having a piece of chocolate or just again as a refreshment as well, of course. But it can stand on its own, but it also goes very well with other experiences.
Yeah, I have to say actually, and this is going to be the link on the last question that I want to ask you, and I believe that actually Zier is perfect for a mid-ride kind of thing, if you can actually keep it cool, if you are actually able to keep it cool or whatever. I think actually is the perfect refreshment
for me. It's ride fast enough.
yeah, that's true. And then I have something like your miles covered and drink your Zier coming back. Yeah. But I think it's perfect, I believe, for bike packing. Yeah. You have it, you bring it around, you can also share it with people. Yeah. People are going to enjoy it. That's actually what I do all the time. I have a frame back and I usually put a couple of those there. And one usually I'm going to drink it because I put it icy cold inside, and the other one, if I find somebody midway, Albis Pass is quite usual, that you find somebody up there, you stop for a chat while filling your bottle or whatever, I give it away. But I think that actually also for longer trips, that's super good. And actually this goes in the direction, the last question that I want to ask you about bike packing. You raced road, you race triathlon, now you're mountain bike, we were talking about multi-stage events, you were talking about gravel with the world champs. I need to bring back something on the BroomWagon, and you did a bikepacking trip. It was more or less 1 month ago. It was your first time. Absolutely. Tell me your experiences. Mine was actually my first encounter with a bike. What about yours at GAMS?
Oh, later? Wow. It is so the story is one of obviously of adventure. And why not, of course, and obviously also an element of reconnection with my brother, because of course we have our families, we've been caught up in life stuff for the last 10 years or so. I think the last time the both of us just did something together as brothers was 10-15 years ago. And so it was really, really cool to do something with my brother. He's found the bicycle later in his life. I think only like early in his 30s, maybe. It's because he continued swimming for a very long time, and then only found the bike later. That sounded like something interesting to do. He kind of discovered bike packing for himself, and kind of more like the multi-day endurance stuff. And I was like, okay, well, why not? And then I was like, threw together my guiding skills and exploring new routes, and suggested a route. Quite an adventure. So that was that. We did do like a circular loop around the Grisons and Gadin.
One of my favorite areas. Actually,
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
I called it an any road adventure because because as you know, with the weather, if we date this recording, that's in summer of 2024. We've had one of the wettest springs in history, I guess. So there's a lot of damage, and that was obviously quite shocking to see in many ways. The damage that has been done by the water, by landslides, by collapsed construction stuff, like bridges that have literally washed away from the rain and landslides and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, we had to keep it quite flexible in terms of the route because some of the bridges we wanted to use. Mm-hmm. Oh wait, it's not here anymore.
Oh gosh.
So there was a bit of that. So we did park the car in Tuzis and then took the route up towards Filisur, Albula Pass, over to the Engadin. Stayed the night close to the Montarach Glacier
with a tent.
No.
Okay.
No, that's where the worlds collide. I was like, my brother was like, oh yeah, we can tent in the side of the road. I was like, no. We do bikepacking, but the compromise is we go to a hotel.
Okay, it makes sense.
And so we stayed there close to Pontresina, and then the second day, which is also a recommendation for anyone that looks like for a really, really cool alpine adventure. And the challenge is the traverse from Pontresina to Scuol. But that's not the easy way down the Engadin, but to go via the Bernina Pass and Forcola di Livigno, down to Livigno, and then take the Alpizella and then Valmora to cross over to Valmistaio, and then cross Valmistaio and go up and over the Costainas Pass to Scuol, and then down that valley. So it's kind of the reverse of the National Park Marathon, a large part, but it's absolutely stunning.
Wow.
Certainly the part between Livigno and Valmistaio is completely remote. We met maybe like 3 or 4 other guys in 3 or 4 hours.
Wow.
And yeah, it's just really, really beautiful, really stunning. And then obviously as you come down into the valleys, you have these massive views and the mountains, and the valleys were all super green, and
yeah,
that was really cool. And then the last day was just my brother was pretty broken.
Okay.
So he had to slog himself over the Flula Pass and to Davos, and then back down to Tuzis. So that was it's quite a trip.
Nice.
But I think it's a cool experience.
Absolutely. I think I need actually the GPX file of it. Or if you have the Strava file or whatever, I want to put it down in the description because it sounds amazing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's quite something. But yeah, you have to be a bit flexible in terms of what's actually in front of you. My favorite motto with cycling is obviously just follow your nose.
Oh, okay.
Because he's big GPX file guy, and he always had like on his computer and like, oh no, we need to turn left here, and I was like, yeah, but this left doesn't look cool. Let's just go straight ahead. It's it's gonna be, we're gonna find a way.
Yeah.
So just follow your nose.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Last thing, and then actually I'm gonna be down. I mean, I finished my bucket list of questions. Where we can find you? I mean, we talked for half an hour, whatever, but around, I don't know, in the internet or whatever. Pascal, where can we find you? If people want to go a bit deeper into your story about the World Championship, or whatever.
Oh man, so I guess if you want to, listen to more of me waffling on about mountain biking mostly, then obviously the Skids and Giggles podcast is your first stop on that journey. Where with my friend Bryson, we're kind of exploring the mountain bike scene in Switzerland. You can find me on the board of Zurich Trails. So we also launched this year another podcast with Zurich Trails, where you can hear me waffle on in Swiss German. Mm-hmm. Also about mountain biking, a lot of things about community, about what we try to achieve at Zurich Trails. And if you have any other questions, the random photos, then just find me on Instagram at Pascal Pensa, and that's about it.
That's perfect.
It's the only social media I entertain.
Okay, yeah. Doesn't need anything else. Probably.
Yeah.
Good.
All right. And I guess likewise, if the Skids and Giggle listeners that are listening to this and want to find more about the BroomWagon.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that actually I have kind of a lot of Instagram handles that I can actually go through that, but probably the easiest thing is actually you can go to Calamaro CC, Calamaro like squid, but in Italian. CC like cycling content or whatever you want to make out of it. There I'm on Instagram, you can find it. Plus, of course, the BroomWagon Podcast, and you can find the BroomWagon Podcast everywhere, basically. Google Podcasts. Yeah, no, they're closing Google Podcasts. Yeah. I think I'm closing it. Yeah, now it's everything gonna go on YouTube. I need actually to do the feed, upload the feed to YouTube. That's another story. But anyways, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere you can find it. Plus, of course, also BroomWagon Podcast on Instagram. That's another good place. Otherwise, yeah, Strava is not super active. BroomWagon Podcast on Komoot for some stupid plans because that I never follow. And of course, Zier Brewing. ZierBrewing.com as the website. I didn't start a podcast yet about Zier. That's something that I need probably to think about. The Zier Brewing podcast. It's going to be about brewing or about something else. I don't know. But for now, there's not. But Zier Brewing on Instagram is there. And I think this is...
I'm sure we're going to put all of those things into the show notes.
Absolutely.
And you can also find it there.
Absolutely. Maybe Stefano Nucera is also my name and surname. And Calamar is my nickname. So everything is going to be there. And that's where people can listen a bit more my voice or checking everything else there. Cool.
All right.
Pascal, it was amazing chat, actually. I think that it didn't take that direction.
It wasn't the last time.
I know. I mean, we didn't talk at all about podcasting, for example. And I never found somebody I can nerd with podcasting. Maybe this could be another episode.
Exactly.
In another podcast.
Exactly.
In another life. No. In this life. We don't have time for the next one. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time.
Bye-bye.
And thanks a lot, Pascal, for... this awesome chat, and thanks a lot you people to listen until here. I know this was a weird episode because there was myself talking about myself quite a lot, but I really love the concept of having this kind of hybrid way of talking and expressing whatever is going around. So just remember, if you want to know more about myself or just to contact me, Calamaro CC. If you want to know more or just contact the BroomWagon Podcast, the both of them on the Instagram. And then also in the notes, in the episode notes, you will find all the links that are bringing you also to know more about Skids and Giggles and every other podcast around Pascal's production. And remember, people, you can rate, subscribe, do whatever you want on the podcast platform that you're using. And we're gonna talk soon. I'm quite sure that you're gonna hear something more from me quite quickly. Bye-bye, everybody.